Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us again. Today we have Helen Joyce with us. I'm going to let her introduce herself so I don't miss anything.
Hi everybody, I'm Helen Joyce. I'm Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters, which is a UK human rights charity that's concerned with clarity about sex in law and life, the two sexes. I'm also a journalist. I was 17 years at The Economist before leaving in 2022 and going freelance. And I have a PhD in mathematics a long time ago, a very long time ago. I've forgotten pretty much all the maths I ever learned.
I think all of us can relate to forgetting all the math we ever learned. So I want to talk to you first about your book. I read it. It was fantastic. But I mean, I feel like maybe your views have even evolved since you wrote it. And I wanted to talk to you about that because it's definitely something I can relate to. It's something that a lot of us, I think, can relate to when we first come into, the gender wars. We want to be a little bit more inclusive. We're a little bit more on the, sure, I'll use your pronouns side and who's it really hurting and all of that. So would you say that you've come to maybe, if you had written it now, you may have taken a different approach?
So the book was conceived of in 2019 and I wrote it during 2020 and it was published in 2021. So just to give people, a sense of when and what. I mean, you're not the only person involved when you write a book. You've got to find a publisher and You've got to get it out there. So I think I did extremely well, actually, in doing very little use of preferred pronouns. It was not going to fly if I just called trans women he, him. It just wasn't. Mm-hmm. I went to some significant effort in a section about a man called Jessica Yaniv, a trans-identifying man called Jessica Yaniv. Who,
yes, Jessica
for anyone
Simpson
who's not
now.
familiar with the story, Canadian man who had a grift going where he would approach women who did bikini waxing out of their homes. And he would try to get them to wax him, and he was an attacked man, like with just ordinary male genitals. And then when they refused, he would take them to court, alleging gender identity discrimination. So I wrote that section without using pronouns at all. And my editor just didn't even mention it. And I was told by the proofreader that she had been told, there's a reason this is being done. It'll be a bit awkward in places, but you're not to change that. So they had dealt with it, I thought, very tactfully. And then we also discussed pronouns for some of the historical cases, people like tennis player Renee Richards, who was Martina Navratolova's coach. And we agreed that I would call these people men and he, him before transition. And, would I have done that now? Well, I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to, but I didn't really massively want to then either. I think the point is that the world has moved on now. Yeah. And I'm incredibly grateful to my wonderful publishers who were the only people who bid for the book. So it's not like there was a bidding war for it or anything like that. I thought I was going to have to self-publish it. I mean, I do think that language is incredibly important in all of this, but I also think that we don't do ourselves any favors by jumping on people who are new to the fight and starting off by telling people that they, that they're getting everything wrong, that their language use is the problem and so on. That I think people back away when you tell them that.
I mean,
I did. People, if you say to them that. Did you? Okay, tell me your story then.
I came in from a more trans-inclusive, mindset because I was a very staunch liberal. I had gender dysphoria in childhood all the way up through adulthood until I did therapy. And, so I really identified with this group. And the more I went into the gender wars in the beginning, my circle was mostly trans people. And so I was, taking their cues as well and being like, well, these TERFs and these women, they're just so unreasonable. And look at them attacking me. And, just really did not like it. It was very alienating. I understand now, doing it to media outlets and being like, those are not our crimes. We're not going to call that man or woman. But with new people, I'm like, let's just a little bit gentler on the approach, because I remember it was really alienating to me. I thought everybody was just mean, and it pushed me harder into wanting to be around the trans-identified people rather than, thinking about why they might be saying that to me.
I think there's a real authoritarianism about it as well. I don't like being told how to talk, and it's one of my major objections to the trans movement is that they tell me to call men women, and I don't want to, and then they say I'm a mean bitch for refusing. But I mean, then we have to turn that around. I can't tell other people how to use their words. I want to be allowed to say how I see things, and if other people want to say how they see things, I can't stop them. I mean, I do cringe when I see... there's no point in naming names because I just think there's too much shaming in all of this. But there are certain journalists who've done good work, but they're still inexplicably calling awful men, like, criminals and liars and obvious perverts, she, her, I'm like, why are you doing that? However, I don't say anything about it. Yeah, so I think that what happens is that it makes it less likely that people will speak. Like, a lot of people say, we've got here because of language, and that's true. And the misuse of language in particular. But more than anything else, we've got here by making people afraid to speak. So I want less fear about speaking. I think people tend to move towards more reality-based language if they're free to speak, and if they aren't afraid of being attacked or afraid of being fired.
Right, that's what,
so, I feel that my arguments work,
Yeah, I agree. That's what helped me, was when people were gentler with me and explained the reasoning, and then I became more open to it. I certainly didn't think, because I came into this wanting to go to bat for people like Debbie Hayton and things like that. And I really believed in the true trans and all of that. I never thought he would come at me arguing that DSDs justified his identification as a woman and things like that. Totally took me off guard. And I gave as good as I got, let me tell you, when he backed off. But it really shocked me to see that kind of shift happening as well with people that I once thought were reasonable and things like that. So would you also say that you've kind of seen a cultural shift almost within people who are considered gender critical or just against radical trans ideology?
Yeah. I mean, oh gosh, so much there, isn't there? I mean, what you witness is that what we're up against isn't a coherent ideology. It's a scavenger sort of ideology that just seizes on whatever false analogies or silly arguments or obviously ludicrous claims or just sheer nastiness is required at any given instant. And I've really come to believe that quite a lot of the most virulent men in this movement, obviously the majority of trans-identifying people are women, and I'm not trying to say that that's not true. I'm just talking about the most aggressive, nasty, the ones who, go after individual women. I've come to believe that what each of them individually thinks is that they personally are the one and only important trans person. I think that they would accept a situation where we don't agree that anybody's trans except them. They're one and only person. They believe very strongly there are two sexes. They don't believe any of that sex spectrum stuff. That's just seized on. And if you were to say to them, okay, we're going to completely end all gender identity ideology, we're going to end all trans activism, but you personally are allowed to count as a woman, but nobody else is. Would you accept that? They'd say yes.
Wow.
So they just pick whatever is to hand at the moment, and they're nice as pie to you as long as they think you've accepted them as a woman. The number of people I've heard say of, such and such a person, oh, he was so nice, he was asking me for coffee, and then he discovered I didn't think he was a woman, and then just vitriol.
Yeah.
Complaints to their boss, complaints
Yeah.
to the police, harassment, horrific emails, So
Mm-hmm.
these people, a lot of them, they're nice as long as they think that you accept them personally.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen them even turn on
by the way,
each
so I can
other.
just say none of that's about Debbie. That's not actually about Debbie, any of it. So just for clarity.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen them even turn on each other, and it's really, it really is quite obvious that there are these other personality issues going on that really need to be examined and maybe taken care of if possible before anybody should be throwing hormones into the mix. It's so irresponsible. Just from the research we've done into the effects of hormones and things like that. It's crazy that anyone approved this ever. In your research, for your book, would you say that you have found that the I guess the motivating force behind people adopting this at an academic and institutional level is almost just like a false bravado that they bring with them, and they're like, "Yep, this is accurate," and without any evidence?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it's just that's been the fashion. That's the way it's gone. Like at this point, it's self-perpetuating because anyone who goes to university and does any course that has anything to do with the social sciences, the liberal arts, even medicine, training for social workers, all of that. This is embedded in it now. And it's embedded in it because it was embedded in it. Like, it's hard to know how it started, but it's been 30 or 40 years of institutional takeover in academia. And I mean, I'm very, very worried about what's happened at universities. I think the quality has gone through the floor at them. Absolutely through the floor. There's hardly any intellectual rigor anymore. Enormous amount of indoctrination, identity stuff, not just gender stuff, but, anti-colonialism and so on in every topic. You're studying music or mathematics or whatever, and you're having to read Judith bloody Butler, and you can't just go and just do history anymore, So, but why is that? That's because the people who are academics, they were in departments where this was taught. So it built up, and now there's pretty much complete takeover of academia and these ideas. So I think they kind of think, everybody thinks the same. That's all they ever learned. They learned something in school as well.
I mean, when I was a liberal, it was similar to that. It was like, well, obviously any reasonable person is going to be on the same page as me. And if they aren't, they're an evil fascist and they deserve violence, and it's justified because we're righteous and they aren't. And it's crazy that I was ever there, but indoctrination hits you.
Yeah. And so nearly every teacher has been through this as well. So like we're teaching kids this from the beginning of their education because teachers are trained at university. So, I mean, the whole thing is a massive indoctrination scam, basically. You don't learn very much. They charge you a bomb. You leave with a load of debt. And in the meantime, they have indoctrinated you into a very counterfactual set of beliefs that really just don't stand up if you haven't been groomed into them from rather young. I mean, this is a bit of a segue, but I was at an event on Monday just gone, book launch for Robert Wintermute, who is a professor of human rights law, and he's written a book. So I don't know if you know Robert's story. He was one of the people who was at Yogyakarta. Yeah, so he was in Yogyakarta in 2006, and he was one of the signatories of the Yogyakarta Principles in 2007. And it was because of gay rights. I mean, he's a gay man himself, and he didn't really notice the transgender stuff in it. He just thought, well, that's what they want. I'm not a specialist in that. The specialists are saying it. And then, he went, as he said, he went back into slumber, and then he came up and he found that they were asking for completely mad things, like completely insane. Anyway, the event, we had 5 people on a panel talking about whether we should get rid of the registration of sex at birth as a proxy for just getting rid of sex as an official category at all.
Right.
And lovely youngish man called Benjamin from University of Lyon came along and said, I'm sorry, Benjamin, if you ever listen to this, completely bonkers things. Just bonkers.
Oh.
And yet it all seemed reasonable to him,
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually very hard to know what to say to somebody who's saying these mad things.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could get inside his head and work out. He seemed like he was so nice, and he'd come from Lyon, and he was very committed to free speech. And there's a woman called Davina Cooper at the university, the same university as Rob Wintermute, King's College London, and she got £2 million to do a research project on exactly this, getting rid of legal sex. And she refused his invitation to talk at this event, even though it's her department, it's her university. She wouldn't have had to travel. She said that she didn't want to get involved in a debate that's more heat than light or something like that. So angry about that. She's given bloody good money from taxpayers. Yeah. Anyway, Benjamin was somebody who was committed to free speech, so he came along to talk bollocks. Like, where did he get all that crap?
Mm-hmm. It's really something. I've noticed. I've got a friend who was freshly peaked, and he's always been a more like chronically online person. And, in online forums and Reddit and things like that. And so he sends me a lot of memes that he sees. And this last batch of memes was so disturbing. And it just blew my mind that they post these things in sincerity. And it's the way I've described it to people. I was just talking to Joe Burgo, and I was talking to him, and it's almost like it's this lol, but what if it was true? Like, what if it was cool that I did it though? And it's almost like a joke and a self-degradation. And so it's that kind of, that humiliation, sissification thing. But I mean, for lack of a better term, but it's also a shitpost. Like it's just kind of like this joke. And it's this weird level of indoctrination through humor and through flippancy. It's interesting because C.S. Lewis actually, I mention this all the time, C.S. Lewis actually wrote something about this in the Screw Tape Letters. And I'm looking at this now and I'm like, it's like practically prophetic. It's so crazy. So, I mean, I guess human behavior hasn't evolved that much, but it's interesting to see how much indoctrination is done this way now through these memes and things like that. Have you seen, I mean, most likely you've seen it.
I think I'm kind of too old and not online enough for that, but that's very interesting because, I'm very concerned about the education side of it, like what's happening in schools and universities. And I mean, one of the reasons I find this so hard to believe is it's so boring. Like, my God, I forced myself to read the final report of that Future of Legal Gender report, the Davina Cooper one. And I'm like, oh, God, like, it's just mind-numbingly stupid. It isn't even funny, Like, I wish it was a shitpost. That'd be more entertaining. So why are people dedicating their lives to this when there's actual good stuff to be done and you only live once? I don't understand it.
That's the question. And it's weird because they almost want to... It's almost a form of like psychological abuse that you're doing on yourself. Like, I am bad. I am an oppressor. How can I find a way in which I am also oppressed and struggling? I need to create a struggle for myself. And it's like a prison, and you get so angry. I was very angry back when I was indoctrinated into this. I look back and I'm like, I wasted so much time just being angry.
Yeah, and I don't know how angry Davina Cooper is. I don't know her personally, and she did not turn up to tell us, Well, was very good-tempered, by the way. It really wasn't people shouting at each other. So I don't know if she's personally angry, but certainly reading it, you don't get the impression that this is actually at all interesting. Like, if she's interested in it, then I don't know what is wrong with her taste. I don't know why anyone does this stuff. It's such rubbish.
Yeah. But so tell me more about Sex Matters. What is some work that you guys are doing right now? What's some work that you feel like was particularly valuable?
So the organisation was set up originally. The idea was that it was going to mostly be about employment rights. So Maya Forstater, who's now the CEO, she took what turned out to be a precedent-setting case to establish that you can't be fired in the UK for having gender-critical beliefs, so-called gender-critical. Like, odd word, but anyway, it just means knowing that there are two sexes and thinking. The belief bit is the thinking that really matters and you should be able to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So it matters especially for women's rights. And amazingly, the first case that she took, it was decided that that was such an unrespectable belief that it was not worthy of respect in a democratic society. So it was put, in the same category as Nazism or believing violent overthrow of government. Anyway, she appealed, she won, it set a precedent. And now more than 30 cases have been taken citing that precedent. And it's become much easier not to be fired here for being what I would prefer to call a sex
really
realist.
Something.
So that's the first step, I think, in fighting back about this, is that you have to make it possible for people to talk about it without losing their jobs. Because people will not talk about something that makes them unemployable. And obviously you can still become unemployable because people don't necessarily tell you why they didn't hire you for something. But, the first step is that protection. And we're still doing a lot of work helping people who are experiencing detriments at work, being bullied or harassed or even disciplined and fired and so on for saying that there are two sexes or for complaining about the fact that a man is using the women's loos or that. But what has happened most recently is people may have heard of the Supreme Court ruling in the For Women Scotland case. So we intervened in that, and that means that we made an argument to support For Women Scotland. And briefly, what the case was about was the definition of man and woman or male and female in our overarching equality law here, which is called the Equality Act. And the Scottish government contended that what it meant was your paperwork. So a woman was anyone who has paperwork saying that they're a woman, and a man is anyone who has paperwork saying that they're a man, meaning either your birth cert or your gender recognition certificate. And we got this historic victory, which was that the Supreme Court ruled in April in a unanimous judgment that no, sex in our equality law, which means your anti-discrimination law and workplace, service provision, goods and services, all that sort of thing, is really your body, your sex, your genuine sex. And it turns out that people don't actually want to implement this. So we're having to go back to court to tell people to do what the Supreme Court says the law is, which is the oddest thing. Yeah. So yesterday, Maya, the day before you and I are talking, Maya was in Scotland because the Scottish government has said, the same government that was brought to court and lost is saying that it doesn't think that it needs to implement this ruling, that it's taking its time to decide how to do it. But the way that the law works in the UK, once the Supreme Court says how you should interpret a law, that's the law from the time the law was passed. Oh. It's there's no waiting. It's that's the way the law always should have been. So at 10 a.m. on that day in April, it became clear that if you have a sign that says M or F, or you use those pictograms, or you say women only, that means really women only. And if you have a policy underneath that says, anyone who identifies as a woman or anything like that, that's not lawful. There's no lawful basis for doing that.
Wow.
But yet, it's not happening. So the main thing that we're doing really is trying to figure out how to get people to do what the government, what the courts say they have to do, to obey the law. I didn't know that we were in such a fragile state, that our institutions were so fragile that they would not obey the law.
Well, that's interesting because, the institutions are the ones who pushed all this on us to begin with. And now they're like, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
It's amazing, isn't it? And they keep saying it's complex. They keep saying it, the Supreme Court caused confusion. And you're like, no, the Supreme Court returned clarity. Yeah. Really, if anyone wants to read something clear, it's like cool water after 15 years of misinterpreting the Equality Act. It's that judgment. And yet there's a whole load of people going like, I don't think I know what you mean. You know very well what I mean. How are you going to police it? How are you going to stop men from using the women's toilets? And you're like, well, everyone knows what sex they are themselves. Yeah. So don't come in if you're the wrong sex. Right. That's the first step.
Right. And, men who are going to violate that boundary clearly aren't doing well, or doing so because they have good intentions and things like that. It's that entitlement. It's that, urge to violate and to make people uncomfortable and impose their presence. And, there are the few who are like, oh, I'm not sure. And then they've got that really progressive friend who's like, no, come in with me. It's fine. And I kind of feel bad for those guys because they're usually
there you are with your female empathy.
I mean, honestly,
the time is past.
There's my
the time is past.
Yeah.
They know,
It
they
is.
know that if it says women, they shouldn't be in there.
Right.
I mean, my sympathy is gone. It really is. I know they were lied to, but now they're not being lied to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not okay. It was never okay. So we did interviews,
That's
myself
true.
and Maya and
That's
the other
true.
women, straight after the court case. And straight away, every journalist goes straight past the judgment and says, aren't you sorry for the trans people? And you're like, can we stop and say how great this is for women first?
Mm-hmm.
One journalist actually said to me live on air, you don't sound very sorry, he said. It's like, excuse me, I'm here for the half of humanity that's female.
Yeah.
Like, once we can, let's not sail right past that. And
right.
we call it but what about the men? That's what we call that. Like, but what about the men?
Yeah.
Second order. I'm talking about the women first, thanks.
Yeah. I need to do that more. I worry a lot about, like, my daughter's going to start potty training soon. And I'm worried about, what if I'm out and she needs to use the potty and we can't go to one of the bathrooms because there might be a man in there. At Disney, there was this guy infamously, goes by Lily Tino, using all the women's facilities and filming
taking
himself.
Photographs. I saw him.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, well, if I were there, I would go tell someone he's filming children, in the bathroom, pretending to take selfies. And, it's making me very concerned that he's filming, little girls in there. Can you evict him? So that's one thing you can do. But if he's not doing that and he's just won't leave and lingering and all that, what can you do really? It's especially with the private businesses still being able to have them in there. It is definitely.
See, we don't have that problem here now. The law is clear. Wow. If you have a single-sex space, people of the opposite sex are not entitled to be in there. And enforcement hasn't started. And the reason it hasn't started is because people are gradually realizing that what it means is actually saying to an enraged, entitled, narcissistic man that he is to get out and stay out. And that if he keeps trying to get in, he's not going to be allowed in this facility anymore.
Right.
So there's a guy called Robin Moira White. He's a barrister. He obviously identifies as a woman. Very large man, very tall, very imposing, very heavy, huge, big, booming voice. And he was in Parliament last week for a hearing of the Women and Equality Select Committee. And he went into the women's toilets afterwards. And two of the women who were there, two campaigners, Kate Harris and Heather Binning, said to him to get out, and he didn't. So they went and got staff, and the staff in Parliament, in literally the place where we make the laws, said that they don't tell trans-identifying people to get out of spaces they shouldn't be in. And then, we wrote to them afterwards, and they've apologised, and we're telling them they have to do their training properly and the rest. But the point is, at some point, somebody has to say to Robin, get out. And if you won't get out, I'm going and getting a security guard. And if you keep coming here and you keep going into the wrong space, you will be barred from this premises because there are rules, and those rules are for other people's human rights, and you're violating them. Right. And if you're a serial rights violator, you have to be got to leave. And nobody wants to do this. Not after 15 years in which people have framed it. They keep going on about how, this is the next Rosa Parks. Can you believe that? Can you believe a 6'2" man going into the women's toilets where women telling him to get out is the next Rosa Parks?
I never thought it would get to that level. I thought this would be solved so much faster.
Oh, everyone does it first. And we all do. We all do.
It's crazy. So what do you think we need to do to get there? What are the steps we need to start taking? Is it, scheduling some kind of briefings or something with staff? Is it,
you can do everything and nobody wants to hear it. They don't want to hear it because nobody wants to take responsibility. What we're seeing here is that this thing of nobody implementing the law. It's because everybody's waiting for somebody else to make them. I actually think they want to be taken to court again because they want to be able to say, out of my hands, above my pay grade, take it up with, whoever. Yeah. And the Supreme Court, in a way, we thought had done that, but it wasn't personal. What I mean is, if it's you, so if you are this particular hospital, they want somebody else to say, you must change this, and it must be done today, and it must be done this way. And they don't care if they spend taxpayers' money doing this, Yeah. So to answer your question, what to do, just to step back, as I said, I think free speech is the most important thing. You need to be able to speak about this. So if you're in a country where you can be fired for saying there are two sexes, and it's important to pay attention to people's sex in some situations, for women's rights in particular, then that's the first thing. You'll get nowhere if you can't say that without losing your job. And then beyond that, like, it's about the indoctrination. Like, every year we churn out another year's worth of kids who have been lied to about biology, about human identity, about human flourishing, who have been taught to be ill at ease in their own bodies, to self-examine in an incredibly fruitless and harmful way. And then, this has been going on for years and years now. So in particular, girls believe this stuff, and girls are targeted by it. I think girls are targeted by it because it's about getting rid of girls' boundaries so that they accept men everywhere. The other way around isn't that. So that, that to me is the big explanation of why girls buy this shit so much more than boys, is that they're the ones who are targeted. In the marketing of it at school and university. Anyway, so those girls come out, they'll become teachers, they'll become academics in all those made up stupid fields to teach the next bunch of kids. They staff HR. And they go out there and they bring their poisonous lies with them and destroy things. And so every year you're creating a lifelong problem, another cohort of people who've been indoctrinated. I mean, it's already going to be very hard to turn it around. There's so many of these people, and they're voting now as well, you know?
Yeah. So
we have to stop the indoctrination.
Yeah. Or break that hold that cult mindset has, which it's possible.
But I mean, stopping the indoctrination first, because it's obviously much less effective and much harder to try to deprogram people who've been programmed into a cult. So parents' rights and getting rid of school programs, like fixing things in schools, strikes me as the sort of thing that actually is possible to do, because most countries do have strong rights for parents, at least on paper. So, getting rid of these education programs about
like
trans and so
the
on.
genderbread person, even, or the gender unicorn. We've made materials like the Self Cloud, where we have your sex doesn't change, but you can express how you like and have whatever interests, and you can decorate this cloud that represents your personality and how you'd like to express yourself. But the clouds all have like a little swirl in them that looks like a little male symbol or a female symbol. So you can, hand them out or draw them that way for either, boys or girls. And we wanted to not include something that, points to the crotch area for like their sex. So I was like, well, what doesn't have a crotch? A cloud. So
that's nice. And I mean, and actually the crotch thing, of course, that's the bikini medicine thing. Like that's the most obvious place that our sexes are different. But our sex is different everywhere. It's different in our hands, in our eyes, in our skin, So those would be my big things, is to stop producing new adults who have been indoctrinated in school and university. University is much harder to change than school. But if kids turn up at 18 going to their lecturers, you said what? You don't think sex is real? Yeah, that would be helpful, as opposed to turning up already indoctrinated. Yeah, but the fact is that for years and years now, there's a cohort, probably everybody between about, like, of the adults, like everyone up to about age 35 or so has had, or 30 anyway, has had really an immense amount of lies talked to them in school and university.
I mean,
and that cohort is going to work its way through, even if we stop doing it tomorrow.
Yeah. You were talking about why girls are targeted. I remember when I was like really around all of the trans-identified people, particularly trans-identified men, which was funny because my thinking at the time was, this is validating to me because they're men and they want to hang out with me. So then that means that I really maybe do have some kind of male identity or something going on, which I'm sure is not validating to them. But so they expressed to me that one reason why they liked women who didn't want to be women and women who wanted to be men was because they didn't want their femininity to be challenged by women. And so they liked kind of talking more to women and girls who were leaning that way so that they could be like, yeah, you know, all the femininity is for me and you can have the masculinity. And I remember like towards when I was starting to see them for what they were, like they weren't really my friends. They were just kind of using me. They started saying things like, oh, well, you know, if you ever wanted to have your uterus removed, I would take it. I would take, you know, I would want your, you know, breasts or genitals or voice or whatever, like just picking me apart that way. And it was really creepy and made me very uncomfortable and kind of was one of the big things that woke me up to these guys are not okay. Like this is not, you know, so I think there's a lot of that going around in girls' circles too, when they're hanging around people like this online and they already
and even
are,
the ones
are
who
uncomfortable
aren't,
in their bodies.
Even just generally, just all girls, like looking at school teaching materials and talking to parents. And, you know, what I've witnessed myself in my own family, as in my extended family, like, you know, the teaching materials really are about you must let boys into girls' spaces, not girls into boys' spaces. It's that way around. So, I mean, there are girls who use boys' spaces and they're doing an incredibly stupid and dangerous thing. And I even know that some, you know, of some kids who have, some girls who have experienced sexual assault as a result. But basically what it's about is telling girls in no uncertain terms that there's no boundary. There's no boundary that keeps out boys. And in particular, that the boys make the best girls. So there was a really sad thing that I saw at my son. One of my children are both left school now, but one of them, when he was still at school, I complained to his sixth form about their terrible trans policy. Sixth form is when you're 17, 18. And his school had a rule that, you know, all gender identities had to be affirmed. Access to the single sex spaces was according to gender identity. Like it was full all in. And I complained all the way up through and got nowhere. And I ended up writing an article about it. But one of the things the school sent to me was they said that they did a student listening exercise as a result of my complaint. And they got the girls who were on something like a student council to answer questions about whether they minded the trans inclusion policy. And it was one of the saddest things I've ever read. All these girls going, oh, they're the most vulnerable girls. You know, we would, you know, nothing that we experience is anything like what they experience. They are always welcome in. They can be, and you're just like, oh my God, they have taught you to be a doormat. Yeah. That school should have taught those girls to say, hell no. Right. Those boys can go off anywhere they like. You know, this place is for us. But they had been solidly indoctrinated into thinking of demands that exclude boys as being meanness, and they are kind. I just thought, like, this school it was so revealing of how badly they had educated the girls and how badly they had let them down. Do you think? So the boys weren't getting any of that. The boys weren't getting any of that crap. Just the girls. So the girls were the ones who were indoctrinated in this. Right.
So do you think? Is there any messaging that you might have seen in your research that suggests that boys are being told the opposite? That, you know, you are entitled to if you identify.
Totally. Okay. Totally. Yeah, these classes they're mixed sex classes that these, you know, but all the material is about trans girls or girls. And girls are the ones who are identifying out of girlhood as well. Like there's more trans boys than trans girls. Yeah. Like it's all about, boys can have whatever they like, including being a girl. And, you know, a girl is not a full human. She's a doormat. She's a second-rate citizen. She's scenery for the boy's adventures. Like the boy is the principal character, and the girl is the non-player character.
Goes to the,
and so girls opt out of that. They have to be boys because they want to be real people. So the whole thing is so screwed up. Like it's literally the opposite of progressive, and all of the weight of it lands on girls. Yeah, well, I say all of the weight, but it's terrible what happens to the boys who get.
I mean, it goes back to. Yeah, it goes back to the memes again, like the ones for boys becoming girls. It's, you know, total objectification, hypersexualization, and the whole sissification, humiliation thing. That's the goal, is to be, you know, a vacant receptacle for men. But the memes for the girls is then to become a hyper misogynistic caricature of a man that is super dominant and pushy and mean even. And it's really like disturbing to see. It's not just about trans, it's about embodying these caricatures that, I mean, going back to the 70s, if you look at the transvestite, like little magazines and things like that, it's what they were writing about. But now it's embodied in these memes. So it's like this little shorthand they've condensed it into. And I really want to just gather up all the memes that I've been sent.
That'd be a really good idea. That'd be a great.
Yeah.
So another thing, the reason I ever got interested, even discovered that fan fiction existed in the first place, was because of slash fiction, which is, I'm sure you know because you're young enough, but just in case there's any, oldies like me listening to this, I'll explain what it is. So it's fan fiction that's about characters who are heterosexual men in the original, but they're having a relationship. So the canonical, the very first one was Kirk and Spock from Star Trek. And the slash is the punctuation mark because it was Kirk/Spock or K/S. And the fanzines in the 1970s and 80s, which were, before even photocopiers had got going and they were handed out at conventions. And now a good deal of what's on the fan fiction websites is still slash.
Yeah.
So I'd have to check again, but when I first wrote about this in 2016, the number one pairing in Harry Potter fan fiction was Harry and Draco. And Draco and Hermione was second. And then I looked back a while, like the years later, and it was the other way around. But anyway, so in the top one or two is Harry and Draco. And this is girls writing homosexual relationships, sometimes, very, very explicit, sometimes just hand-holding. But it's them imagining themselves into being boys. And I do think that that's played a part in girls identifying as boys as well. And the way that, not all, but some of those stories have a very yaoi feel about them. That kind of, Japanese. When people are looking at me like this, like people my age are just looking at me and their jaws are dropping as I'm saying.
My sister actually had a yaoi phase. So I get it.
So there's tens of millions of stories out there, and it's this thing that's completely invisible to people over about 45, probably over about 40. Like they literally don't know about these sites existing, or about this aesthetic, or about girls doing this. So I say to them, imagine a Korean boy band. You know that look. That's the boy that these girls think they're going to be.
Soft boys.
Soft boy. And then they think that they're going to be gay boys, like that gay men or boys are going to want to have sex with them, but they're heterosexual girls.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying there's no gay men who are going to go for this. It's just like, this is not going to go the way you think it is. So girls are deluding themselves into several fake versions of masculinity. The one you described, the very toxic one, but also this soft boy thing that, the gay, that they're going to be welcomed into gay culture. Like I've talked by now to gay men who said that there have been women in their spaces, like trans-identifying women in their spaces. This is happening now. Yeah. And these girls are just bonkers. Absolutely.
They have no clue. It's really something. I've unfortunately run across a lot of them on X, and I'll go and check out their profile, and it is insane how many of them have explicit, again, sexual content that they're like, look at me being a boy. And it's like, that's not something any boy is going to be doing. And like, you need to get out of this whole thing because this is really not good for you. And
messing up your head, totally.
Yes, it is.
And putting you in risk.
It is extremely.
A gay man was telling me this story that it was his friend that had happened to enroll in him. So his friend was basically at an orgy, and gay men only. And then he hears this woman's voice going, "Hiya," like really high pitched voice. And he said, my friend looked up, from what he was doing, and there's this girl going, "Hi, this is my name. It's my first time here." And this guy's telling me the story, and he says, like, rule number 1 of these places is you don't speak. There's no talking. And then he said to me, it was as if she wanted us all to have lanyards.
Yeah.
That cracked me up. It really did. Hiya!
I've been in the art community, like the online art community, for a long time. And even like 15, 20 years ago, I was seeing like young women do the slash fiction, with, you know, the most popular ones that I've seen are shows like Supernatural, Sherlock with, Cumberbatch.
Yeah, John Locke, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Like, and, so they like these pairings almost where like there's this really bad villain like Draco, like, you know, and then the hero or the softer character, and they're together, and the villain is really, you know, still kind of tough and gruff and whatever. And the other one's like, oh, I'm just so, I don't know what I'm going to do. And
they're romance novels.
Yeah.
I mean, the piece I wrote, I think it was came out in 2016.
It was very similar to those.
So that was the thesis, was that these are the same as romance novels, except it's romance put onto to men. And what's going on there? Yeah, I mean, I still don't have a full answer, and I think I did. Yeah. You know, I wrote that article.
I mean, I don't know what's going on in romance novels.
And I forgot about it, and then I did various jobs at The Economist, and I was finance editor. I wrote my book, and my book was already out. When one day I thought, oh my goodness, I wonder if that slash fiction is one of the pathways into trans identification. And I look back at the article, and, you know, I'm fine with everything that was in it, but I think I missed any, because I didn't even know trans existed. Like, I didn't know kids were transing when I wrote that article. Yeah. I had no idea of the extent to which girls were coached and self-coached and groomed and self-groomed into projecting themselves into a male identity. Yeah. So I wrote this whole piece, you know, after the whole trans thing had really exploded in 2015, and I didn't even know that was something that was happening.
Like, at the time, you know, I was having these feelings, but I had them since childhood, and I wasn't going around, like, my inner circle of friends knew I wanted to identify as a boy and things like that. It wasn't something that I projected to people I wasn't very close with, because I knew it was weird. But when I was in things like Anime Club or online anime forums, I saw a lot of that, identification with the male characters and a lot of the yaoi stuff. And I was like, well, it's just, you know, they're just role playing. But now I'm looking back and I'm like, you know, a lot of those girls, now women, did, you know, now identify as queer or non-binary or what have you. And it's like, I wonder if it was that, no, refer to me by my anime, you know, persona name.
So I think it's cause and effect, isn't it? So when I researched the slash fiction piece in 2016, people have been writing about why slash since the 1970s. Like, at first only a few, because it was really, really just a very fringe thing that was done at Comic-Con type stuff, you know. And so, you know, the theories, they're kind of timeless. Like, if you look at romance novels as a genre and you analyse them, which I haven't done, but there's a book called A Billion Wicked Thoughts that has a very, very interesting book. Okay. And it's well worth reading. It's about what we know about male and female sexuality from analysing women's erotic fiction and men's porn. And I mean, you know, they're both of them, I'm sure, have become much, much smuttier even since that book was written, and much more extreme. But I mean, they're very, very different in ways that are revealing of male and female evolved psychology. Anyway, so the central problem with the romance novel is that the interesting person is the man. So I'm talking about heterosexual here for a heterosexual woman. The woman is always kind of a pain. Like, she's a bit too perfect, or she's, you know, inexplicably not that pretty, but everybody falls in love with her when she takes her glasses off or whatever. She's the cliche. The man, the book stands or falls on the man. Like, is the man intriguing, edgy, you know, and you know, the whole thing is, because it's a genre, you've got to work your way around a big misunderstanding, you know, and a happy resolution, and, you know, they're very formulaic. But anyway, one of the theses of the slash fiction, like why slash fiction, is that it's actually easier to do without a woman in it, because the woman is the hard thing to do, and what's interesting is the man. So if you're a heterosexual woman, what you like about romance fiction or, you know, erotica is the man. It's not the woman. She's in the way, actually. Right. So why not double up? You know, why not have two of them?
I see. Okay.
And then you can play out the same drama that women like, because women love drama. Like, women find drama, you know, misunderstandings and fallings out and, you know, troubled childhoods and things like that. They find that erotic. in a way that men don't.
Right.
Like,
and
one of
now
the things
they've
that's
got two men.
Yeah, they've
two
got
different
two of them,
personalities.
and two different personalities, two heroes to like, and they can, but they're still playing out all the same stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no annoying woman to keep popping up and be in your way. And one of the things that struck me, and one of the things that I forget who the author was, but somebody who wrote about all of this very revealingly, she said that when she went and she asked men why they liked watching porn with two women in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they said things like, well, you know, one woman good, two women better.
Yeah.
Or, you know, there isn't a man spoiling my view,
right.
or whatever, but you
so
still want them doing stuff, you know? So yeah, it is.
Okay.
And,
that finally makes sense to me, because
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly, Harry and Draco doesn't work for me at all, but, you know, there you go. Like, I see the point.
Yeah.
And also, especially back in the 1970s or 80s, like, where people were less forgiving of gay relationships, like, one of the things that's very erotic for women, or very, you know, also very emotionally satisfying, is when the man gives up a lot to be with you. Like, he goes a lot of effort. Like, he gives you so much. He walks through hell to save the woman from something. Well, imagine giving up your actual sexuality to be with a man. It's a huge sacrifice and journey. And, you know, those journeys are so important. As you can see, like, Harry and Draco would be the two most distant people, basically, in those books.
Yeah.
So to get them together, that's fun. You know, that's a fun writing task.
I can see that now. I'm confused by romance novels in general. I read one accidentally once. I was like, oh, it's a story about dragon people. And then I was like, oh, because it was so, the man was so, like, forceful and borderline rapey with the woman, and it was, like, horrifying to me.
Oh, my God. Yes, there's a lot of rape in women's romance novels. It's one of the most unpleasant things.
Even the show Outlander. Good Lord. There was one scene where I think she was about to be raped by someone, or she was being raped by someone, and someone saves her from it, and then proceeds to do the same thing. And I was like,
wow.
What? Like, it's really baffling to me.
I really recommend that book. You will enjoy it so much. A Billion Wicked Thoughts. And it's, But one of the things that I really enjoy doing, like, as a sort of thought experiment, is imagining putting the tropes from men's porn into women's erotica, or vice versa. Like, one of the things in women's erotica is the man has to have status. He's got to be interesting, complex, admired, successful, you know. So women are always telling you things when they write the hero. They tell you things like, where his watch was from. And I love the idea of a porn film in which you're told where the watch is from, the woman's watch. Or how many languages she speaks.
Right.
Or something like that, you know. I mean, I don't know if you know that, and you probably do know because it's common knowledge, but the what's it called? Those, the 50 Shades of Grey, they were fan fiction originally. And they were Twilight fan fiction in particular. And this explains why he's under 30. I think he's 27 or something like that. And he speaks a ridiculous number of languages. He is a self-made billionaire. I think he's a very good pianist. I forget what other things he's done. Like, it's literally impossible to have done all those things by 27. But the point is, he was a vampire. So he had time to do them, you know.
Right.
And that, I think, is part of why the vampire one is so popular, is the vampire has had loads of time to just be ridiculously successful and, enigmatic and all these things. And it's just like, you know, men are not doing this. Men are not imagining vampire women as their porn. Like, it's just, you know, she's delivering a pizza and all her clothes fall off type thing, you know.
I wonder if it would change anything in those two cultures, like if it would change anything in the psychologies of those two cultures, because we've seen both kind of get out of hand and super extreme, and I'm wondering if, like, maybe a little bit of sharing might change things. I don't know.
I just think it's all inexplicable. Like, you may not know this, Jake, because it's an English one. So there's a guy. Like, ages ago, he was a TV magician called Paul Daniels, and he ended up marrying his assistant.
Oh.
And she was much, much younger than him, Debbie, I forget her surname. And there was a famous interview of him, and he was maybe, I don't know, in his 60s or something at the time. I'm going to tell, I really butcher these stories, sorry, but anyway, there was a point to this. She asked him, what first attracted you to, no, it was the other way around. I really do butcher stories. It was an interview of Debbie, and it said, what first attracted you to the millionaire Paul Daniels? And it's like, there's something very deeply true about women in that. And it's not just money, it's status, etc., etc. And I was telling a friend of mine out in Brazil this when I lived in Brazil as a foreign correspondent. And he straight away, he said, well, what first attracted you, Paul Daniels, to the pretty 20-something-year-old blonde magician's assistant, It works both ways. Like this is a match made in heaven in a way. And you see that very much in the in erotica aimed at the two sexes. You see, they're not. It's neither of them very pretty to face the reality of it. Yeah. Like, is it admirable that women are interested in how much he earns and how successful he is and how other people think of him? Is it admirable that he thinks like, big tits? Not terribly either way.
Well, but, I mean, you can trace it back. One
was not worse than the other.
Yeah. Have you read Why Gender Matters? And they talk about sex differences and evolution and how it's kind of they talk about like how things are going and in terms of like how girls are being groomed now into more extreme things by boys in high school. It's a really fascinating book, but it also talks about sex differences from an evolutionary perspective. And it kind of like you're talking now, and maybe it's just because that's where my mind is most of the time, is on sex differences and the evolution of them. But if you boil it down, then, the man is looking for fertility in the woman, and the woman is looking for, is he a good provider and is he competent? So I think it's just extreme. It's just like way pushed to the extreme.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, one thing that, like, why do women like written erotica as opposed to visual erotica? I mean, women do watch porn. I'm not saying they don't, but men don't tend to read anything like romance novels. Like, what is it that's so satisfying to women about it? And I think it's that what women are looking for, the things that, that we've evolved to look for, it's just a much wider and more complex set of things. And it can be satisfied in lots of different ways. Like, a man can be, there's not one way of being a good provider by any means.
Right.
It's possible to be intelligent, powerful, a bit scary. Like there's the genre of the man who's really quite unpleasant to everybody except you. Like, that's a very popular romance thing. Have you got like good connections in your tribe, so to speak? Women like fixing men. They like to be the one who understands him. So it's a much, much more intellectually, emotionally varied thing. And it's just endlessly fun to be thinking about it and working it out. And I mean, men, of course, read and write fantastic literature and that, but it's not about over and over again that script of how two people come together. Because that's not the satisfying thing for men erotically.
Right.
So they like, that's why, I can't understand war movies and war films. I just like, why do you want to watch men killing each other? But, my very, very pacifist husband loves them. He doesn't actually hit any men in real life, but my God, he likes a war movie. So I think that's like men psychologically thinking through something that's been a part of men's psyche for a very long time. And it's kind of inexplicable to me.
Yeah.
And we kind of went off there, didn't we? But it was fun.
But it's
one of the more unusual sex differences.
Definitely. And, our sex differences are evidenced, obviously, in culture. They're evidenced in society at just a grand scale. So, I mean, it's all fractals. But
and it's also all self-referential, which is what you're saying when you say fractal, isn't it? Like, it feeds back into itself, and then that feeds back out into the culture, and that feeds back into itself. But you can't get it off the ground if there's nothing for it to grab onto.
Right.
And I mean, I think if somebody wanted to make porn aimed at men, in which it was particularly important, all the status symbols in it, they wouldn't do very well.
Probably not. But
there just isn't something there. There's no there.
Yeah, that's true. So what do you guys have planned next at Sex Matters? What do you have planned next as Helen Joyce? What are you looking forward to in your upcoming projects?
I mean, Sex Matters now is very much about trying to make the Supreme Court stick, the Supreme Court judgment stick. That's going to occupy us until we get it to stick, which I hope won't be years. I hope it'll be more like, months and then a bit of mopping up. Other things we're concerned about are child gender medicine, although it's not our primary focus. We're more supporting organisations that are more medically focused than we are. Absolutely, we're very concerned about what is happening in schools. But there's a government guidance that's been stalled for a long time, and we've kind of had to take our eye off that ball because we've been doing other things. But we would like to return to thinking about how you stop indoctrinating children, how you stop the school to clinic pipeline. And personally, I would really love to get going on a second book. I mean, it's years since my first one came out. It's actually a problem how long it's been. It's just that I'm so busy.
Yeah.
But, every day, madness is happening.
It really is. It's crazy. I think it's unprecedented. Just even thinking back to when I was a kid in the 90s, like what the news cycle then versus now. It's like, it's at warp speed now. It's like every day I turn around and there's like a new crazy headline going on. So no one really gets attached to any one thing for very long.
The speed. It's true.
Yeah. So what would the next book, do you think, be?
No, I
about?
can't tell you. It's
okay.
It's not I have ideas. It's not I always say to people, because people sometimes say, like, I'd like to write a book. Like, what's your advice on writing a book? I mean, I've written a grand total of one, so it's very nice of them to think that I have any very useful advice. But, there you go. And it's all about structure. Like, writing a book is all about structure. True for an article as well, but you've got to have, an overarching, for me anyway, maybe other people do it differently. You've got to have an overarching thesis, and you've got to have a way to tell that story. So my colleague Fiona McInerney at Sex Matters has a book coming out soon, and it's like a history of Turf Island.
Oh wow!
Affectionately called the UK. And so she and I talked through when she was thinking, like, she knew which bits she wanted to cover, because she was there for a lot of it. Like, she was really close to quite a lot of the big players, and what she said in the end was it was going to be in campaigns. Like, each chapter was going to be a campaign, and that's what I mean by structure. So, I often quote Helen Lewis's book title, A History of Feminism in 11 Fights. Like, straight away, you know how to do the book. There's going to be 11 chapters. Each of them's going to be a fight. And then she had a quite formal sort of, the fight for contraception, or the fight for divorce, the fight for being allowed to have property inside a marriage. And then for each of them, it was how it played out in her own life. So you have to have structure, and then you can write, because you know what goes into each bucket. And I haven't got that yet.
Yeah.
And just each day, the day is over, and I haven't put the concentrated, high quality thought in that I need to.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I've written
focus is what I'm lacking.
I've written to, and I keep meaning to write more, and just everything happens all at once, and it's been tough to sit down and write.
Yeah, we're all losing our focus as well in
definitely.
This fast-paced news environment, and with social media. Like, focus is now
I've had to stay off of X mostly, just so I can organize thoughts and get more done. So let's part on a positive note. What motivational advice would you give somebody who wants to make change, wants to do things? Who should they reach out to? What steps should they take?
Oh, goodness. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but the thing that I've seen people do in this is they burn out. It's quite painful. It's hard to believe how much harm has been done. Yeah. And it is crazy making. Like, it is. The linguistic messing, the lies, the calling black as white. It's designed to drive you mad. So you've got to stay sane. And how do you stay sane? Well, by having supportive people around you. And by supportive, I don't just mean yes people. I mean, you have to be part of a group of people that you trust, who see things the same way as you, and they can keep you real and you keep them real. Right. And they've got your back. And, when you get very down, you can go to them, and you can joke and laugh in a way that would not be maybe appropriate publicly. And then the last bit of advice I would give to people is to compartmentalize. So, all of us have shit going on, especially the women my age who are in this. Like any woman who's in her 50s has family shit going on because it's the age at which parents are getting old, and you've probably got kids as well. So pretty much everybody I know has shit in their personal life or stuff. You know, I don't mean awful shit. I just mean stuff. You know, you've got responsibilities, you've got caring responsibilities. This is all crazy. And of course, you may be trying to earn a living as well. And you've got to be able to say, you know, I'm putting that down and I'm doing the other thing now. I'm not worrying about X. I'm thinking about Y. And that's something I didn't know how to do when I was younger. And now I can do it. And I don't think I could do what I did if I allowed myself to try to think about the enormity of the task and how bad it is and how much there is to do and how far we are from it. I'm just thinking about what I'm doing today.
Right.
I know what I'm doing here, and I'm not worrying about the things in my personal life, or, you know, I gave myself permission to pay no attention whatsoever to things like Ukraine.
Right.
I can't, I can make no difference there. You know, it's only self-indulgent to waste part of my life on that when there's somewhere else I can make a difference.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
I've had to learn how to do that too. And it's not easy because there is that guilt and that tug on your heartstrings. And we want to be able to go and affect things as people and go stop atrocities and things like that. But you definitely, that note of just focus on what you can affect directly, what you can change directly, and hopefully it will ripple out and continue making positive change.
I think it's actually self-indulgent, and it's a type of self-indulgence that women are very prone to thinking that it's their job to fix everything, you know, that we're everybody's mums. I mean, I'm an eldest child of a large family, and so I have that, you know, eldest daughter thing of thinking that it's my job to do things. But I had to lay that down, you know. Yeah. It's not my job to fix everything. At most, I'm going to be able to help play a small part in fixing one thing. Right. And that's more than most people manage. So I've given myself permission not to worry about the rest. And I don't mean about being nasty to people. I really don't mean I give myself license to be an absolute arsehole. You know, I do not mean that. I just mean that anything that I were to say about all the other myriad things that are happening in the world that are bad, that would just be performative, because I'm literally not going to be able to do one thing to help. So I'm not even going to say anything about it. I'm just going to focus on what I have decided to focus on.
Yeah. And I think that's good for everybody to take to heart right now, especially. But thank you for joining us today. And it's been a pleasure. And I really appreciate you answering everything so honestly and just out there. I love that about you.
Oh God, was it that bad? This is all going to come back to bite me then, isn't it?
Hey, some stuff might come back to bite me too. We'll see. So, but yeah,
thank you for having me on.
Yeah. And your book Trans is available for purchase digitally and physically, and it's really something. It is an amazing read. It will inform you so much about the gender wars, where it came from, who started it, where this has all come from. So yeah, definitely check it out and support Sex Matters. So
thank you
again.